Your life.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Oh Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Jaya Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari, Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hari. Oh Jaya Radha, Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radhe. Madana Mohan Radha, Madana Mohan Radha. Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe. Govinda Radha, Govinda Radhe. Jaya Radha, Gopinata Radha, Gopinata Radhe. Jaya Radha, Gopinata Radha, Gopinata Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. Jai Shri Shri Guru Garanga Ganhavika Kiridhari. Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Mahabhagavat Shila Gaura Kishodas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Shila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Arupa Nuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Magina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Prabhajantamanapetyam Apetykrityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Taravo Binedustam Sarvabhutam Hridimanamaya Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptas Chakarmadi Tarangamadye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanara Vindam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. And unto the lotus feet of our beloved Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namine Gauda Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Vrayate. And all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Vargya and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to everybody. So carrying on with our Jaiva-Dharma study, and I think we're second Falshruti. It's on page 830. Jadai Dvaita Jnana Hoya Chita Upadaya
Krishna Bhakti Chiradina Upaya Upayi. Such knowledge, which is solely related to the duality of this dull material world, is fit to be rejected.
Amazing how many times we have to hear it, because we don't actually believe it. We still think that knowledge or our attachment to this world is actually more real than the spiritual reality. This is why he has to say it so many times. We still, our faith, our nishta, if it was complete, we would basically have been able to incinerate our stool sarira, our gross body, and our subtle body. But still we have faith in this material world. So again and again, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying this attraction to this dull material energy. Go on.
Whereas transcendental knowledge of the divine duality within the spiritual world, Chit Jagat, should be accepted forever within one's heart, both as the Upai, means of attainment, and the Upai, goal worthy of attainment.
Yes, when our faith is complete, when that shraddha is fully steady, then we can put our whole consciousness into that spiritual conception, consciousness. Jiva kabu jadanai,
Hari Kabunai, Hari Saha Jiva Chintya Beda Abedamai. The Jiva is not a product of dull matter.
Again, every single time. It's saying same thing. Why is he saying same thing again and again? He's saying it every single verse.
Manda Sumanda Matayo Mandva.
Yes, we don't understand. We don't have that much faith. But he's reinforcing the conception that this particular scripture is not connected to that one. It's showing us the path out of this illusory condition.
The Jiva is not a product of dull matter, nor is he Keval Advaita, absolutely one in all ways with Sri Hari. The Jiva is inconceivably different and non-different from
This is
him.
sublime tattva of Achintya Beda Beda that Mahaprabhu himself manifested to reconcile the controversy that they were all having. All the different sampradayas previously had all been contesting. Is the jiva one with Krishna's energy, or is he... Advaita Bad was prior, Sankaracharya at 800 AD, and then Ramanuja. And then he was saying, oh, the jiva is distinct. But still, they hadn't actually appreciated this point of the jiva and Krishna are one in the sense that they are both inconceivably one and different. This is what we were going through in the Vibhinamsa Tattva. We were reading the similarities of the jiva with Krishna. So this is the great difficulty that people in the world have, because they got a spark of Krishna in them, and they can realize this through yoga, through mercy, etc. But then the misconception is that when they start to believe that they are that Krishna, this is the trick of Maya. So this is where our sadhan has to be developing this attraction to Vrindavan, to Braja Prem, to the residence, to the Leela, to the personal conception. If we don't develop our attraction to the personal conception, we're going to be attracted to the potency of Krishna within us, that power as being me, like God. So we have that, and we've been discussing these different aspects of liberation. So there's liberation into the Brahmajyoti. There is also liberation into Paramatma feature. But both of these paths we're not interested in. We're interested in actually that seva to Bhagavan. This is the path that we are.
If somebody think he is not God, but a couple of days ago I spoke with some man, and I sent him Harikatha, Shilnarayan Maharaj. He said me, I'm Shiva. I don't need anything.
I'm Shiva.
Yes, he said I'm Shiva. What, he's Mayavada or what he's he?
Yeah, Mayavad, completely.
Mayavad.
Yes. This is called Ahango Parsana. It's like when we identify with that person and we think that that's Mayavad. That is Mayavad. Because some Shakti perhaps will have come from, in this case, Lord Shiva. He's saying that a friend has the conception that he is Lord Shiva. But this is completely Mayavad, totally Mayavad. Who is Lord Shiva worshipping? He's worshipping Ram, he's worshipping Sankarshan. This is his Ishtadev. So, no, Mayavad. Deya
Deha
kabo
kabu
jiva
jivanai,
nai, dara
dhara
bhogya
bhogyanai,
nai,
dasa
dasa
bhogya
bhogya
jiva
jiva
Krishna
Krishna
Prabhu
Prabhu
Bhokta
bhokta
hai.
hai.
The material body should never be considered to be the jiva, and this earth is not fit for the jiva to exploit and this earth is not for the jiva to exploit and enjoy.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used to say all the time, we are foreigners in a foreign land. This is not our home. Don't try and make a home here where you can find pleasure in the material elements and so on. This is to be given up, this attachment.
The jiva's swarup is Krishna Das, and thus he is meant for Krishna's enjoyment.
But at the same time, the jiva is by nature full of pleasure. Someone was asking me this question today. If they're feeling that they want to take some pleasure from their service, then this must be wrong. But actually, you should take pleasure in your service. And I gave the example, if you're serving prasadam, and everyone is very happy with you giving them the prasadam. But if you're not happy serving the prasadam, you should be blissful serving the prasadam also. So there is bliss within the jiva when he's serving Krishna. If you're morose, how is that going to satisfy Krishna? You can't be. If there's unhappiness in your heart, how can you please Krishna? How will Krishna be happy in your company? So there is pleasure in the jiva, but pleasure in the service. If the gopis were not filled with pleasure, why would Krishna be interested in dancing with them? Anyway, we have to understand this.
Whereas Sri Krishna's swarup is Prabhu, Master, and Bhokta, Enjoyer.
Jaiva-Dharma
Jaiva-Dharma
nahi
nahi
ache,
ache, Deha
Deha
Dharma
Dharma
Katha,
Katha,
nahi
nahi
ache
ache
Jiva
Jiva
Jnane
Jnane
Mayavada
Mayavada
Prata.
Prata.
This book, entitled Jaiva-Dharma, neither discusses matters related to the dead material body, nor does it propound the Mayavada doctrine of Jiva's oneness with Brahm.
Yes, it's saying the same thing again and again and again. That this book that we're reading, this is the Falshruti, this is the fruit of hearing this divine scripture, is that we're not going to increase our attachment for this world. Jiva
Jiva
nitya
Nitya
dharma
Dharma
bhakti
Bhakti
tahe
Tahe
jada
Jadanai
nai,
Shuddha
Shuddha
Jiva
jiva prema
Prema
seva
Seva
phala
Phale
payatai.
Payatai. The Jiva's Nitya Dharma is Bhakti, devoid of material motivation. The Jiva, purified by Seva, attains the fruit of that Seva in the form of Prem.
Yes, that beautiful verse. Savai pumsam paro dharma yato bhakti hoiksaje ahoitiki apratihata. This means without motivation and without cessation, always, like anukulyena krishnanushilanam, constantly, like an unbroken stream of oil, beautiful fragrant oil. It never stops, without motivation. If we have some sort of material motivation, how can we become liberated from this world? Because it's according to our desire. It's the desire of the jiva that has the potency. Everything is emanating from desire. Just like Krishna has desire. We understand that when we were discussing Shakti Tattva, how Shakti is doing everything, arranging everything. But what is Krishna doing as Shaktiman? He is the one with the desire. He has that free will and he has freedom. This Tantra Mayata and Swa-icha Mayata. He has the free will and freedom. So this is the desire basically. So what is our desire? What is our root core desire? That is what will be examined when we leave this body. We will run where that deepest desire is, whatever that desire is. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajati anti kalevram. It's whatever you desire at the time of death. that is what will be our destiny. Okay, so we come back to chapter 17. And I just want to mention something now, that we've been talking about the different types of liberation. This chapter is entitled The Jivas Freed from Maya. So for the last 3 days, we've been talking about different types of liberation. We've been talking about the liberation into the Brahman and the liberation of Paramatma feature. But I was saying that, and reading from my Gurudev's Bhagavad Gita, how Paramatma is not eternal. Because when the jivas all enter into the body ultimately of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, then Mahavishnu, where is the function of Paramatma? Paramatma doesn't have a purpose. Once the jiva has, if there's no jivas there, then how can Paramatma have a function? But I wasn't saying the beautiful side about Paramatma, because that wasn't really our focus of the topic. The topic was about liberation. But don't misunderstand that and think that, oh, Paramatma is not totally worshipable, and that Paramatma is not our very, very best friend. There's no doubt that Krishna, in his extreme mercy, he accompanies the jiva through every situation that he goes through as Paramatma, as Supersoul. Like the verse we read originally about the 2 birds sitting in a tree. The jiva and the indwelling Paramatma both reside in the body like 2 birds in the same tree. So the Paramatma is always there, and the Paramatma is our greatest friend. What's that verse? Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshu arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudani mayaya. That we are situated like on a machine. The personality of Krishna is there with us all the time. So we should have, but what is the function of Paramatma? Paramatma's function is to support the jiva anytime he wants to turn towards Krishna. Paramatma is witness, which is like neutral. He can't interfere with the jiva's independence. But when there's an opportunity for him to support our journey towards Krishna, he will do that. So as a Vaishnava, as a devotee, we are many times connecting with Chaitya Guru, with Paramatma feature, but it's not with the mood to have Paramatma realization. Try to understand the difference. If you're a yogi, you want Paramatma realization. Why? Because Paramatma contains so much power and potency. And the yogi wants that mystic power. This is principally, it's described that the jnani, he reaches the stage of mukti or moksha. He merges into the Brahmajyoti. That's the destination of the jnani. And the destination of the yogi is Paramatma realization. That's the destination of the yogi. So what does the yogi actually ultimately want? He wants all these mystic opulences. It's not that he's connecting with Paramatma, but not for the objective of pleasing and serving Paramatma. How can Paramatma reciprocate with your seva? He can't. He's within the hearts of all living entities. So it's somewhat impersonal. But my whole point of saying all this was to appreciate that we don't want Brahman realization and we don't want Paramatma realization. We only want Bhagavan. I said this verse, Vedanti tat tattva vidastatmam yajnanam advayam brahmati paramatmati Bhagavan iti shabhyate. And I also made the point that I know many devotees, they think that you have to go through these 2 stages to reach Bhagavan. And I try to explain clearly that that is completely wrong. That if you attain the stage of Bhagavan, of Brahman, you will never leave it. If you attain the stage of Paramatma, you will never leave that. So our focus must be on Bhagavan. That's our focus. So while I was explaining that, I was saying about the Paramatma feature not being eternal. But that doesn't mean that there's anything negative about the Paramatma at all. Don't be misunderstanding what I'm saying and think that. Paramatma is our greatest friend, our greatest well-wisher, and he's with us all the time. And we have great, great attraction and affection for Paramatma within us. It's Krishna within us. Of course we have attraction for it, but we're not seeking Paramatma realization. Understand clearly? So I just thought that I was thinking today, perhaps some people might be thinking that something negative about Paramatma. No, it's just the realization of Paramatma, which is a realization that we don't want that, because then you will end up perhaps on Mahaloka or Janaloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka, just in Paramatma realization, not in the opportunity to serve Bhagavan. You see?
Maharaj, a sadhak who knows the reality that Paramatma is sitting with us.
Yes.
Oh, so in his meditation, while he's doing his japa or otherwise, can he think that Radharani and Krishna is sitting with him? Means Paramatma,
He can think that he is serving Radha and Krishna. He
not
doesn't have to
giving
think beyond there.
not giving much importance to Paramatma. This is Paramatma. Can we just think Radharani and Krishna is there and with us, and hope you got my point.
No, yes, but it's coming from the wrong way around. Our connection with Radha and Krishna is through service to Radha and Krishna. It's not I'm thinking that, oh, Radha and Krishna are there in my heart. That's almost like a Paramatma type thought. I'm thinking Radha and Krishna are in Vrindavan. How can I serve them? My meditation is to serve them in Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu is meditating on this himself. He's meditating on Nishanta Lila, etc. He's not thinking, oh, Radha and Krishna are in my heart and I'm just pleasing them by chanting Hare Krishna. You understand? The point is on seva. We are das anu das of the
Gopi Bhattu,
maidservants of Sri Radhika. So it's with that mood. It's very fine, subtle points here, you know, that you can only appreciate through your personal meditation. But if you're thinking about Paramatma while you're chanting, that's not necessarily going to bring you to a Vrindavan consciousness. When we're chanting, hopefully we'll be thinking of the Leela and the qualities and the sweetness of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. Okay? Clear?
yes,
Fully?
yeah.
Okay. I just hope you will understand that about Paramatma feature. Okay, so we read these 3 verses yesterday on page 389. Now we come to Brajanath's question. You have said that the association of Shuddha Bhakti, is that where we're up to?
Yeah.
Okay. So just read from Baba, since time without beginning.
Baba, since time without beginning, the Jiva, who is eternally bound by Maya, has been moving in the universe, taking birth according to his karma, sometimes as a Deva and sometimes in the various animal species. From the time that he attains the association of saintly people because of his past pious activities, Sukriti, he fixes his mind very strongly on Krishna, the controller of all.
Yes, it's Krishna outside that he's actually meditating on. He's meditating on Krishna in Vrindavan with all his associates. He's not meditating on Krishna within me. Krishna's already there as a witness. Paramatma is a neutral personality. He's not interfering with our independence at all. So what is the value to meditate on Paramatma while you're chanting? You want to meditate on all the different sweet, sweet leelas of the 10th canto. We want to fill our consciousnesses with this.
Vrajanath, you have said that the association of Shuddha Bhaktas is achieved by Sukriti. What is Sukriti? Is it karma or knowledge?
Okay,
Babaji.
understand the question? What is Sukriti? Where is Sukriti coming from? We need Sukriti. Okay, go ahead.
The Shastras say that there are two types of auspicious karma, Shubh karma, that are in accordance the with Vedic injunctions. One causes the appearance of bhakti, while the other gives irrelevant inferior results. Performance of pious activities such as Nitya and Naimitic karma, studying Sankhya and cultivating Gyan all give irrelevant results. The only auspicious activities that give bhakti as an end result, bhakti prada sukruti, are associating with Shuddha Bhaktas and with the places, times, and things that bestow bhakti.
So he's saying repeatedly here again and again, because the title of this chapter is The Jivas Free from Maya. So it's through sadhu sangha that the jivas become free from Maya. This is the message that he's giving here very strongly, right? This is what we've been hearing for the last few pages. Okay.
When enough bhakti prada sukruti has been accumulated, it gives rise to Krishna bhakti. The other type of sukruti, however, is consumed after one enjoys its results.
You understand?
Hmm.
Yes.
So it does not accumulate to give any permanent result.
No, we get the good result and then we spend the results, so to speak, on our various material desires. They're already expended, so we can't retain them.
All the pious deeds in the world, such as charity, only result in achieving the objects of sense gratification. The sukruti of impersonal speculation results in impersonal liberation. Neither of these kinds of sukruti can give devotional service to Sri Bhagavan.
So this is what we were discussing, the different types of liberation, and there's impersonal liberation. Paramatma liberation sort of is a little bit in the middle. It's not quite 100% impersonal, but still it has an impersonal result in the sense that you just want power, mystic opulence. So these two types of liberation can be acquired through just practice of sadhana and so on. But bhakti, that can only be acquired through sadhu sangha.
Activities such as sadhu sang and observing Ekadashi, Janmashtami, and Gaura Purnima all help to develop one's saintly qualities. Tulsi, Mahaprasad, Sri Mandir, holy places, and articles used by sadhus, sadhu vastu, are all auspicious. Touching them or obtaining their darshan are pious deeds and give rise to bhakti.
Clear?
Hmm. Vrajanath, can a person obtain bhakti if he is tormented by material problems and take shelter of Sri Hari's lotus feet in full knowledge to become relieved of his problems? Babaji, the jiva, harassed by the afflictions of the goddess of illusion, may somehow understand through discriminating intelligence that worldly activities are simply troublesome and that his only solace is Krishna's lotus feet and the feet of his Shuddha Bhaktas. Knowing this, he takes shelter of his lotus feet, and the first step in this process of surrender is to accept the shelter of Shuddha Bhaktas. This is the principle Bhakti Prada Sukriti, through which he obtains the lotus feet of Bhagavan.
So bhakti prada sukriti. This is the sukriti that the jiva, this is his fortune. If he can have attain this bhakti prada sukriti, not the regular worldly sukriti of charity, etc., doing good deeds and things like this. Good karma will come as a result of that. That can actually be an impediment
Hmm.
in the sadhak's life, just like the gopis had to be purified of their sukarma. When they had good karma coming to them, it was like an impediment that had to be burnt up also. So we just want this bhakti prada sukriti, which is very explicit. It's direct service to Vaishnavas, sadhus.
This is the principle Bhakti Prada Sukriti, through which he obtains the lotus feet of Bhagavan. Whatever renunciation and wisdom he had originally were just a secondary means of obtaining bhakti. Thus, the association of bhaktas is the only way to attain bhakti. There is no other recourse.
This is exactly how Madhurya Kadambini in the first chapter describes how to get bhakti. It's saying the same thing. In Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, does bhakti come from pious activities? That means bhakti is controlled by karma, but bhakti is not controlled by karma. Bhakti just comes from the heart of someone who has bhakti. That's the only place it comes from. And that has to be a living person. You can't take that, imagine that bhakti is in another uh, time frame,
Frame.
because that bhakta has to look at you and he has to make a physical transmission of that. It's a physical transmission. It generates from the heart of the bhakta who has bhakti. He can give it to you. Without that, you cannot get bhakti. You can get sukriti. Say, for example, you take shelter of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, but you've never met him. You will get sukriti to meet someone who has bhakti, who will give you that seed. That will be the result. That will be sukriti.
Brajanath, if karma, gyan, renunciation, and discrimination are secondary ways of achieving bhakti, what is the objection to calling them Bhakti Prada Sukruti? Babaji, there is a strong objection. They bind one to inferior temporary results.
Yeah, understand, going through this journey of life, and if you start doing a lot of charity, and say you open a school or a hospital or something like that, you will get completely immersed in that activity, because there will be a lot of glorification of you in that activity. People will say, oh, he's so charitable, he's so kind, and you will start to relate to that rather than be relating to your service to Krishna. That will put you into another place of thought, of consciousness, rather than the focusing on remembering Radha and Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. You'll just be thinking to, and many people in this country of India, they do like that. They believe that charitable works will please God. I think other religious faiths also, they think that by pleasing man, you're pleasing God.
Oh.
No, it doesn't say that. By pleasing the sadhus who know Krishna, only this way. A sadhu means someone who knows Krishna, who's constantly in touch with Krishna. Sadhu actually means literally straight like an arrow. That's what it means. It means they're just focused completely on the Supreme. That's what a sadhu is. He has nothing else in his life except that.
Maharaj, to add on to your point, suppose Jiva who does lot of charity and other
Mm.
materialistic pious activities, so
Mm.
his next birth will be a Bhogayoni, where he can't perform sadhana.
Perhaps he may get to Swagaloka.
That's what
On those,
Bhogayoni.
yes.
Then no question of bhakti at
No
all.
question of bhakti in Swagaloka. Completely. We feel rewarded materially when we do those types of activities. People will thank us. They'll be grateful for us. It'll give us some material inspiration, but it won't give us bhakti. We have to know the difference between the two. Bhakti is something that will affect my consciousness to remember Radha and Krishna and my service to them. It's not of this world. It's not limited by anything to do with worldly time or worldly space. It's beyond.
There is a strong objection. They bind one to inferior temporary results. The performance of karma has no permanent result, but it binds the jiva to the objects of sense gratification. Renunciation and empirical knowledge can only lead the jiva as far as knowledge of Brahm.
Yes, because the qualities of Brahm are knowledge and renunciation. So he's saying here, objects of sense, renunciation and empirical
Empirical
knowledge.
knowledge.
Those are the two qualities in the Brahman, right?
Yeah.
So they can only bind the jiva to knowledge of Brahm.
And this conception of an impersonal supreme principle prevents him from attaining Bhagavan's lotus feet.
Many people, it's very difficult sometimes to appreciate the personality of Krishna. We are trying to avoid that confrontation with um, knowledge that Krishna is a person. He's sitting there. He's aware of all our um, thoughts, etc. Sometimes the sadhak becomes afraid of that. So he runs away into the impersonal conception. It's like a running away from confronting the reality of the personal form of the Lord. So we must be very careful with that. Always know that Krishna is a person waiting to receive our seva if we're genuinely wanting to please him for his sake, not for my sake. Many times we'll do some seva thinking, oh, I'm making some sukriti so that my next birth will be better devotee or something like that. But that's again like really running away. If we're not focusing on the present circumstance of just pleasing the Lord at the moment, it's a bit cheating process.
Consequently, these cannot be called Bhakti Prada Sukriti. It is true that they sometimes take one to Bhakti, but that is not the usual course of events. Sadhu Sangha, on the other hand, definitely does not award any secondary benefit, but forcibly brings the jiva towards prem. It is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 25th chapter and 25th shloka. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavantirit karna rasayana kataha tajjoshanad asva apavargavartamani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishati.
This is what Kapila Dev is saying to Devahuti, his mother. He's saying this verse in the Bhagavatam. Anyway, read the translation.
In the association of Shuddha Bhaktas, the recitation and discussion of my glorious activities and pastimes are pleasing to both the heart and the ears. By cultivating knowledge in this way, one becomes established on the path of liberation and progressively attains, attains Shraddha, then Bhav, and finally Prem Bhakti.
Yeah, this is the path of liberation from the material attachments and attraction. This is what it means, this liberation. Ultimately, liberation means I no longer want anything in this world. That's the first step. But real liberation, like we've discussed, is actually when we connect in service to the Supreme, because that is like the first stage we read before. Remember, a few pages ago,
Hmm.
that was the one stage of liberation. But actually, what is beyond liberation is what the devotee should be thinking about. What is the nature of my spirit soul in connection with service to Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan or in Vaikuntha, wherever it is that we feel? Better we just say Goloka Vrindavan because that is Mahaprabhu's benediction, or Swetatweep.
Vrajanath, I understand that Sadhu Sangha is the only Sukriti that gives rise to Bhakti.
Mm.
One has to listen to Harikatha from the mouths of sadhus and thereafter one obtains Bhakti. Is this the proper sequence to progress in Bhakti?
Mm-hmm.
Babaji, I will explain the proper way of progressing in Bhakti. Listen attentively. Only by good fortune does the Jiva who is wandering throughout the universe achieve the Sukriti that gives rise to Bhakti.
The Sukriti that's going to put him in touch with
With so
sadhus, this Bhakti Prada Sukriti, not the Sukriti of good credits, etc., which will give him karmic results, which will be used up. So that is not our purpose. If we're serving devotees, even, but we're thinking, I'm just doing some charitable work, this is not going to give the same benefit. If I'm not acknowledging these are devotees, I'm serving Krishna by serving his devotees. Always that has to be there.
one of the many limbs of pure bhakti may touch a jiva's life. For example, He may fast on Ekadashi, touch or visit the holy places of Bhagavan's pastime, serve a guest who happens to be a Shuddha Bhakta, or have the chance to hear Harinam or Harikatha from the lotus mouth of an Akinchana Bhakta. If some if someone desires material benefits or impersonal liberation from such activities, the resultant Sukriti does not lead to devotional
He
service.
has to say this because many times devotees do like this, but their actual desire is something different from Shuddha Bhakti. This is why in the Falshruti, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is repeating again and again and again and again. Don't look to dull material energy for your satisfaction. Don't look in this world. We have to look towards the spiritual world.
However, if an innocent person performs any of these activities, either unknowingly or out of habit, without desiring material sense gratification or impersonal liberation, these activities lead to the accumulation of Bhakti Prada Sukriti.
So just sincerity of focus and desire to please the Lord with no other motivation. What's that? Aprahata yeyatma. I just said that verse. Salvai pumsam parodharma yato bhaksya hoche hoitiki
Aprati.
apratihata. Without any type of motivation, am I able to serve the Vaishnavas directly? That will depend on our individual sincerity. I said the other day, all these different paths of liberation, you can't categorize them all completely. Every individual jiva will have his own way of actually connecting with Krishna because every jiva has his own particular flavor or rasa in that service to Krishna. So it's not, we can't just put everything under the same um, heading, so to speak.
After accumulating such Sukriti for many births, it becomes concentrated enough to give faith in pure bhakti. And when faith in bhakti is undivided, one develops a desire to associate with Shuddha Bhaktas.
When he says after many births, this is to give us the strong impression that this isn't just like a quick process. This changing of the heart, this operation that we are internally performing ourselves in our lives by living in the holy Dham, by chanting Hare Krishna, etc. It's going to take time to bring us to this proper conclusion. It's not just a quick thing that's going to happen. I think in the Western mentality in particular, we're so impatient that we want things straight away. We want things now. We're not ready to be patiently going through the stages correctly. But patience is required.
By association, one gradually becomes engaged in performing sadhan and bhajan, and this leads to the removal of anarthas in proportion to the purity of chanting. In proportion to the purity of chanting, when anarthas are removed, the previous faith is purified further to become nishta, firm faith.
That firm faith, yes, when I cannot take my mind away from Krishna, that is really nishta.
This firm faith is also purified to become ruchi,
Mm.
spiritual taste. And by the Saundarya, beauty of bhakti, this ruchi is strengthened and takes the form of asakti,
So
transcendent.
he's answering the question of Brajanath, what is the progress of bhakti? Is this the proper sequence to progress in bhakti? So now Babaji is explaining the progress for bhakti through nishta, ruchi, asakti, bhav, etc. This is what he's giving, completely according to Rupa Goswami.
This ruchi is strengthened and takes the form of asakti, transcendental attachment. Transcendental attachment matures into rati or bhav. When rati combines with the appropriate ingredients, it becomes ras. This is the step by step progression in the development of Krishna Prem.
That's a very beautiful paragraph. Yes. To appreciate this progression daily, we should consider this progression from anartanivriti to nishta, to ruchi, to asakti, to bhav, and to prem. It's a beautiful sequence that we should consider, and we should be considering. Sometimes you perhaps might be on the platform of ruchi, tasting, and then you suddenly go back into anartha nivritti. It's not that you cross over out of anartha nivritti and that's it forever. You might attain, just like Jad Bharat, you might go into the higher regions, but then you come back again. You're moving until you become steadily attracted completely in this mood of asakti. Asakti is complete, unmotivated attachment to Krishna.
The principal idea is that when people with sufficient sukruti have darshan of Shuddha Bhaktas, they develop an inclination to proceed on the path of bhakti.
We see so many people come to the pure devotee. So many people came to my Gurudev. Thousands of people came. They might stay for a month or 2 or 3 or 4, and then they go away again. Why? Because their sukriti is not strong. Their sanskars are not strong. My Gurudev used to say this himself. If your sanskar, if your sukriti is not strong from previous births, then it's a different journey for you than those whose sanskars and sukriti is strong. They can go very quickly. Their faith will come very fast. They're called these gada sanskars. We'll talk about them. There's sanskars we make in this life and sanskars we have from previous births. There's adunika and prachana, these two different types of sanskars.
One associates with a Shuddha Bhakta by chance, and this leads to initial Shraddha, whereupon he gets the association of the Bhaktas a second time. The result of the first association is Shraddha, which can also be termed surrendered, Sharanagati. The initial sadhu sangha is brought about by contact with holy places, auspicious times, and paraphernalia, and recipients of Sri Hari's grace, all of which are beloved by him. These leads this these lead to the faith in his shelter. The symptom of development of such faith are described in the Bhagavad Gita 18.66. Sarvadharmam parityajya mamekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchah.
This is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying again in his Falshruti. It's the same message. Give up all these, abandon all material dharmas and just take shelter of me. This is what this verse is saying.
Here the words Sarvadharmam imply worldly duties, Smarta Dharma, Ashtanga Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Gyan, and renunciation. The jiva can never achieve his ultimate spiritual goal by practicing all these dharmas, which is why the instruction here is to give them up. Shri Krishna says, my form of pure and condensed Satchid Ananda, appearing as Vraj Vilasi, the performer of wonderful pastimes in Vraj, is the only shelter for the jivas.
Yes, to meditate on that wonderful personality in Braj, Krishna's pastimes.
When one understands this, he gives up all desire for bhukti, material sense enjoyment, and mukti, impersonal liberation, and with undivided attention takes shelter of me. This is known as Pravritti Rupa Shraddha, the exclusive tendency to engage in Krishna's service.
Mm.
When such faith dawns in the Jiva's heart, with tears in his eyes, he resolves to become a follower of Vaishnava Sadhu. The Vaishnava of whom he takes shelter at that point is the Guru.
So we see in the beginning of this Jaiva-Dharma when Sannyasi Thakur comes and his heart is melted by Paramahamsa Das Babaji. And then he takes this resolution. And then because he has this Bhakti Prada Sukriti, he has many good credits there from his study, from his renunciation, even though it was on a Brahma Gyan platform. But still he has all that Sukriti and complete Shraddha in the Vaishnavas. So therefore, he can move very quickly. We see just in a few chapters, Vaishnava Sannyasi Thakur becomes guru, like a self-realized soul, because of his sukritis. So we see this example.
Vrajanath, how many types of anarthas does a jiva have? Babaji, there are four types of anarthas. Number one, Swarup Brahm, being in illusion about one's spiritual identity. Number two, Asat Trishna, thirst for temporary material enjoyment. Number three, Aparad, offenses. And number four, Hridaya Daurbalya,
These
weakness
are,
of the heart.
there's a list on my website of these very clear. We should know these fully. This isn't something we should just walk past. We have to know these anartas. When we understand what anartas um, are there, it's like knowing the potholes in the road.
Hmm.
When you know these, then you can navigate around them, or you can purify them very easily. But if you don't know what these are, if you're in ignorance of this, how can you purify them? These anartas will arise and I become bewildered. I won't know what's happening. But if I address these anartas closely, okay.
The jiva's first anartha, namely Swarup Brahm, occurs when he forgets the understanding that I, the pure spiritual spark, am Krishna's servant and is carried far away from his original spiritual position. When the jiva considers that he and his dead material position are I and mine, he develops three types of asat-trishna. These are the desire for a son, for wealth, and for celestial pleasures. There are 10 types of aparad, which I will discuss later. The jiva is grief stricken because of Hridaya Daurbalya. These four types of anarthas are the Naisargika Phal, the fruit of Nisarg, or the acquired nature of the jiva who has been caught by ignorance, and they are removed gradually by cultivating Krishna consciousness in the association of Shuddha
So
Bhaktas.
all of this chapter is concerned with how does the jiva become liberated from Maya. So this is like the process to become aware of these anartas and then to purify these anartas. Then we can become liberated from this material attraction. This is the first step. After the liberation, then becomes activity in the spiritual world. And to become liberated, we need to focus on the activities. And then automatically we will achieve liberation. But it's the activity in the spiritual world that is the principle, not the liberation.
The fourfold path of yoga consists of withdrawal from sense objects, pratyahara, self control, yama, following various rules and regulations, niyama, and renunciation, vairagya. This process is not the proper means to free oneself from material anxiety, for it is difficult to attain perfection and there is always a strong risk of falling down. The only way to become free from all anxiety is to cultivate pure Krishna consciousness in the association of Shuddha Bhaktas. Thus, the jiva is freed from Maya's stranglehold and his constitutional position is revealed to the extent that anarthas have been removed from his heart. Vrajanath, can people with no trace of anarthas be termed liberated people? Babaji, please consider the following shlokas. Rajobhi samah shankyat parthav parthivair iha jantavah तेषां ये केचनेहान्ते श्रेयो वै मनुज्झाड्यः प्रायो मुमुक्षुवास् तेषां केचानैव द्विजोत्तमः मुमुक्षूणां सहस्रेषु कश्चिन्मुच्यते सिद्ध्यति मुक्तानाम् अपि सिद्धानां नारायणपरायणः सुदुर्लभः प्रशान्तात्मा कोटिस्वपि महामुने. Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 14th chapter, shloka 3rd to 5. He, Bhagavan,
Hey,
Is this hey?
No, it means hey, hey
Oh,
Bhagavan.
the Y is missing.
It's a mistake. Hey Bhagavan.
Hey Bhagwan, there are as many jivas in this world as there are grains of sand. Only a few of these are human beings, amongst whom only a few direct their effort in search of higher goal. Of those who are endeavoring for a higher goal, only a few rare individuals seek liberation from this world. And out of thousands of such people, hardly one is actually able to achieve siddhi, perfection, or mukti, liberation. Out of millions of perfected, liberated souls, it is difficult to find a single peaceful, great soul who is fully dedicated to seva of Sri Narayana. Therefore, Narayana's bhaktas are very rare.
What to speak of those Rasik Vaishnavas are even more rare. Just read the rest of this paragraph.
A person free from all anarthas is known as Shuddha Bhakta. Such bhaktas are very rare. Indeed, even among millions of muktas, one can hardly find a single bhakta of Sri Krishna. Therefore, no association in this world is more rare than the association of Krishna's bhaktas.
Okay, we'll stop there today. So this is the essence of freedom from Maya, or the jiva, free from, liberated, is to take association of sadhus, to have that constant, regular sadhu sangha. And sadhu sangha means, like we are doing, we are discussing these truths together. This is creating bhakti prada sukriti, no doubt. And we're getting clear understanding of the focus of our path. So this is there can only be auspicious results for this. It cannot be anything it's nothing to do with karma. We're not talking about trying to achieve anything except wake up our seva to Radha and Krishna. This is all we're trying to do. And that will automatically bring liberation from this material world completely. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva-Dharma ki jai, Gold Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bevacha, Patitanam Bhavnebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namaha. Gold Premanande.